So you're thinking of moving to Canada, maybe because of the H-1B changes, politics,
Genius.
or just to finally experience a winter that counts.
We've talked to dozens of Americans who've made this move. Some thrived, some struggled, some are still figuring it out.
Here's what you actually need to know to succeed in Canada. Let's dig into it.
First things first, you can't just show up in Canada. Many Americans are surprised by how difficult and expensive it can be to move to Canada. Overall, there are 4 realistic pathways to move to Canada. First is express entry. It's the federal points-based system ranking you by age, education, work experience, and language skills. To paint a picture, let's say if you're under 30 with a master's in tech engineering or healthcare and speak English and French, you will likely score well and will be invited to apply for this visa. But if you are 40 with general degree, it's definitely tougher. Processing time takes 6 to 12 months, so I suggest you start early. The upside is that you become a permanent resident from the moment you land in Canada.
Next, we have the provincial nominee programs. It works similar to the express entry, except that you need to fill specific provinces' specific needs. For instance, Saskatchewan needs healthcare workers. British Columbia prioritizes trades and tech. You can look up different provincial programs on each province's website and find one that suits you best. The best part is that some provinces' processing times can be much faster than express entry. The downside of them is that it's getting competitive, since everyone who can't qualify federally is trying the provincial route.
Next, there is a student visa route. A lot of people use this path. I even met a family where the husband went back to school in his 40s and his wife came as a digital nomad, and the kids are on student visas. After graduation, you can get a work permit that may lead to permanent residency. But heads up, Canada recently cut back international study permits. We realized our housing and healthcare couldn't keep up. It's still possible, but it takes planning and money. Tuition for international students isn't cheap, but it can be cheaper than in the US, depending on where you're coming from.
Finally, if you work for a company that has offices in Canada, you can do an intra-company transfer. This will probably be the smoothest, easiest way. But your visa status will still depend on the employer. After you gain Canadian work experience, and if you are still in your 30s, you can apply for permanent resident status as soon as a year after you land here.
The main point is, Canada wants to know what you are going to contribute. We're not looking for people to take from the system. We want to know what you are bringing to the table. Jobs for Canadians, skills Canada needs, capital you're investing. Speaking of which, if you have a spare $500,000, you can consider immigration by investment in Canada.
If any of these options interested you, go straight to canada.ca and spend 15 minutes to get acquainted with the website. It has all the immigration pathways with step-by-step instructions and documents required for immigration. So all you need to do is choose the right pathway for you and your family and follow the provided instructions.
Now let's talk about the financial aspect, because this is where Americans get blindsided. Let's start with the housing costs. Average Toronto home is 1.1 million Canadian dollars. Vancouver is even worse. And depending on where you're moving from, the living costs may bite too.
If you're moving from Maryland to a place that's considered more affordable than top-tier cities, like Vancouver Island, for example, in many cases you may still find it more expensive by the US standards. And your income might drop a bit at first. Most newcomers take a year or two to bounce back financially.
Here are a few things you would expect to pay more for. First of all, groceries. In Canada, they typically cost 20% more than in the US. See, the US has fertile agricultural land, not to mention Mexico right next door. But Canadian agriculture is limited and on a much smaller scale. That drives food costs up.
Cell phone plans are notoriously expensive because of oligopolies. You'll pay $60 to $100 a month for basic service.
Same goes for home internet. There's limited competition, which means higher prices.
Gas is pricier too, though most Canadians statistically drive less thanks to decent public transit and bike lanes infrastructure.
And finally, taxes. This is the next thing to be aware of, and the situation here is a bit more complex.
Personally, I find it hard to compare taxes between the two countries as apples to apples. We've done a whole video comparing costs of living and tax, and even did a separate one breaking down healthcare costs. And we've discovered some shocking results. So if you want to understand the healthcare component, make sure that you check that video out.
But in a nutshell, if you're making a baseline of 100 Canadian dollars annually, you will be giving away 30 to 35% of that in tax with your every paycheck.
What's important to recognize is that healthcare in Canada is publicly funded. Therefore, many medical services here are free. And when I say free, there are no deductibles or out-of-pocket medical costs that you'll incur. Unlike in the US, where even having a private insurance still requires you to pay out-of-pocket for medical services.
So now let's talk about the healthcare. Yes, healthcare in Canada is free, which we mean is funded by taxes. You'll never see a medical bill for a hospital stay, surgery, or a doctor visit. In Canada, you just pay your parking fee when parked next to a hospital.
You're covered under public healthcare if you have a permanent residency, a work permit, or an international student visa.
But here is what's not covered through public healthcare. For these things, you will still need to purchase private insurance, which may cost you around $150 to $500 per month, depending on family size. Good news, though, most employers cover up to 90% of your private insurance, so you can get great healthcare perks for just about $40 per month. This will be deducted from your paycheck.
The biggest trade-off that we all face for healthcare is wait times for procedures, tests, and specialist appointments like a cardiologist. The system prioritizes the most serious and urgent cases first. In some provinces, it may take you over a year to get a family doctor.
When both of us moved to Ontario, we honestly did not struggle finding a family doctor. We just called several clinics until we found one that was taking new patients.
But when I lived in Montreal, on the other hand, I was on a family doctor waitlist for 2 years, until I just moved to Toronto and found a family doctor within a month.
Not having a family doctor is not the end of the world. You can always use a walk-in clinic for any health concerns and emergency rooms for emergencies only.
Each province publishes their own wait lists and wait times to get a family doctor or see any other specialist, so you can check these out for yourself. My personal take is that it all depends on the gravity of your situation. If the doctor deems your situation urgent and life-critical and high priority, then you'll get fast-tracked for treatment and procedures without much waiting.
One American who moved to Vancouver Island noted this.
We just felt good being there. We felt safe.
Not worrying about medical bankruptcy is genuinely life-changing for many Americans.
Here's an important note for new immigrants and newcomers. You may not be eligible for provincial health coverage for your first 3 months after moving. So we highly suggest you still get a private bridge insurance for this period. You can check a full list of requirements for provincial health coverage on the provincial websites. Some provinces don't even have that 3 months wait time and you get public access right away.
Now, the thing that every newcomer complains about, Canadian employers love asking for Canadian experience.
And they do that for many reasons. First, there are plain work culture considerations, like, will you conform to the Canadian workplace norms? But there are also different working standards and levels of responsibility that different roles carry in different countries. One of the big reasons why Canadian employers are careful about hiring people is our labor laws. Our labor laws are a lot tighter and are designed to protect the worker, not the employer. For instance, if you want to fire or lay someone off, there are hoops that you have to jump through before you can legally fire someone.
Here are a few ways to circumvent this pesky Canadian experience issue. First, get your credentials recognized early, long before you move. Doctors, nurses, electricians, engineers, teachers, your qualifications often won't automatically transfer. We recommend starting the recognition process 6 to 12 months before immigration.
Next, you have to network aggressively. Canada is like a big village when it comes to communities and connections, so knowing a guy who knows a guy is key. LinkedIn actually matters here more than in the US, I found. So you need to make sure that you join industry groups, attend virtual meetups, do informational interviews while you're still in the US working on your immigration. We talk about this process a lot in our career playlist, so check it out, or make sure to subscribe to our newsletter where we share weekly career tips and other life hacks in Canada.
One thing not many folks consider is contract or temporary work. Instead of looking for a full-time permanent job, there is tremendous opportunity to offer your future employer a 3-month contract or fixed scope service as a way to prove yourself and to deliver value without the employer committing to hiring you full-time. It helps you build Canadian experience and is a low-risk hiring option for the employer too.
Another big thing to consider is location. First, make sure to check the number of job postings in your field in different cities. You will notice that some cities have more openings than others.
Once you have a job, your salary will be 20 to 30% lower than comparable US cities, even accounting for exchange rates. A software engineer making 150k USD in San Francisco might make around 100 to 110k Canadian dollars in Toronto. On the flip side, you're also not paying $2,000 a month for healthcare insurance, so it balances it out.
With the recent H-1B changes in the US, Canada is actively recruiting tech talent. The global talent stream can process work permits in 2 weeks, allegedly. But you need a Canadian company to sponsor you. And what's the best way to do that? Networking. Build connections, show what you can do, and enjoy your smooth move to Canada.
It's important we talk about cultural differences, because here's where things get a little subtle. Canadians and Americans speak the same language, watch a lot of the same shows, share a border, but the cultural vibes are quite different.
First, it's the communication. In the US, especially in business, directness is valued. I don't think it's going to work means exactly that. In Canada, we soften everything, so we're gonna say that's interesting, which will often mean that they think it's a terrible idea, but they're just being too polite to tell you that directly. When they say, "I'll think about it," that usually means no. "Let me get back to you on that" might mean yes, might mean no, but definitely means that that person is not ready to commit right now at this moment.
You need to pay extra attention at the subtext and read between the lines. It's like we're all speaking the same language but different dialect of English, where the words are the same but the meaning shifts.
In meetings, it's important to give everyone a chance to speak and feel heard. Even over email, you often see more and more people CC'd in a discussion as it unfolds. It's a way to kind of gather all the perspectives, inform everyone on what's going on before someone finally makes a critical decision.
See, the apology thing is legitimately real in Canada. It's not weakness, it's just social lubricant. There's actually a law here in Canada, and I'm not even kidding you, that says that saying sorry doesn't count as legal admission of fault. We say it so much that they had to legislate that it doesn't mean that you're accepting blame. When in doubt, say sorry.
Canada also has a special relationship with exceptionalism. In the US, self-promotion is normal and even expected to survive. "I closed the biggest deal of the quarter," you'd say in the US. In Canada, that same achievement gets downplayed. "Yeah, the team did really well on the project. I was lucky to be part of that," a Canadian would say. Canadians value teamwork and humility, sometimes to a fault.
Yeah, bragging about your achievements the way you might in the US might backfire in Canada and will paint you in a cocky picture. Canadians prefer to let their work speak for itself. Give credit to the team or the teammate while downplaying yourself, especially in public. I know it feels weird coming from American work culture, but trust me on this. You'll stand out as arrogant if you don't adjust. Canada is in this weird limbo where it expects more bragging than in some cultures like Europe or Asia, but it's still not as extreme as the US. Yeah, Canada is weird in this way.
Small talk is different in Canada too, actually. Weather is always the safest, most polite subject, and we have plenty of things to say about the weather no matter the time of the year. Hockey is also huge. Pets is a great topic too.
Americans love their politics, but in Canada, politics exist in a much less polarizing way in day-to-day conversation. Mostly just to politely inform each other on what's happening, and if there is a new law or a new announcement that we think is relevant to the person that we are talking to. How we think about religion is different too. Canada is largely secular and everyone minds their own religion.
I remember when I first moved to Canada, I was shocked by how drivers actually stop at crosswalks. Like, without you even stepping off the curb yet. Pedestrians cross at the right places. Neighbors show up to help you or introduce themselves, especially if you mention any struggles. Colleagues at work dedicate time to onboard you and help you. It's this collective agreement to just not be jerks to each other.
Obviously, there is a special kind of jerk in any nation, but the general culture here leans towards let's get along rather than I am a free person in a free society with free speech who does whatever they want.
Multiple people who've moved to Canada also emphasize one thing, and that thing is something we cannot stress enough. Winter here, for the most part of Canada, is not just cold, it's a 6-month commitment.
Americans from southern states think that they understand cold because they experienced that one snowstorm where everything shut down. That's cute, but in Canada, that's a Tuesday in February for us.
Or May.
So with that, you'll need the right winter gear and the right layering strategy. We've made 2 videos about this in detail, so make sure to check them out to prepare for Canadian winter.
A lot of people from southern states also underestimate the effect of winter on mental health. It's no joke. It gets dark at 4:30 p.m. in December. You leave work in the dark and you come back home. It's dark too. If you're in BC, the sun can be a rare visitor. Seasonal affective disorder is real, and it hits hard if you're not prepared. I've even met people who realized they were actually allergic to cold. That's a real thing.
So once you commit to Canada, the best thing you can do is dress well and embrace the winter.
And embracing it is the most fun thing. Canadians ski, skate, snowshoe, build backyard rinks, go sledding, attend endless winter festivals like the Igloo Fest where you dance in the cold dressed up in ski gear. Or you can even try winter camping. Lean into winter, don't fight it. If you stay active, it will fly by faster too.
Here is something that catches Americans off guard. Your US credit score does not transfer here. And it doesn't matter if you had 800 credit score in the US. In Canada, you're a ghost where you will have to start from 0.
The best recommendation that we can give here is to consider cross-border programs. TD, RBC, and BMO have programs specifically for Americans moving to Canada. They may consider your US credit history for certain products here.
The rest of the credit card rules are pretty much the same. You will notice that we have a lot less options to choose from when it comes to banking. Most banks charge $15 to $30 monthly unless you maintain minimum balance on the account under minimal interest rates. Free checking accounts barely exist here, except some of the neobanks like Neo Financial and Wealthsimple. I will put some referral links down below if you want to get some kickback for signing up. It'll get us a kickback too.
We also don't have Venmo and use PayPal a lot less than Americans. Instead, we have an Interac e-transfer. You send money by phone number or email and it lands instantly. No separate app or registration needed. It's safe, free, and everyone uses it for rent, splitting bills, Facebook Marketplace deals, you name it.
There's one important thing that I would like to highlight, and that's something that we always tell newcomers to Canada from all over the world, not just from the US. Moving from one country to another is much harder than expected.
So let's unpack this. Sure, we live on the same continent and we have similar cultures and language that we use. Unless you're moving to a predominantly French-speaking province, that's a slightly different thing. Nevertheless, moving to a new country with new systems, new places, and a different society is one of the hardest experiences all of us will ever have experienced. You are building everything from scratch, literally everything. Setting up bank accounts, getting a driver's license, visa paperwork, renting a home, buying clothes for a climate that you hadn't lived in for years, looking for a job, making new friends.
It's exhausting. Every single task requires research. Where do I buy groceries? Which cell provider is the best? How do I register my car? What doctor's office is taking patients? Which bank to choose? How do I send my kids to school? It's a death by 1,000 administrative tasks.
So naturally, the first few months are genuinely really hard. With all the settling down and getting used to new things, give it 3 to 6 months to feel settled. Don't expect to have a smooth sailing in every aspect of life. You may get the newbie high right away, but the reality will soon kick in, so be ready for that.
You will miss the things that you were used to, like your coffee shop or the food brands that you like. It's an adjustment that many people underestimate.
And you know what? Homesickness hits randomly in the most weird times. You may be fine for weeks and then hear or smell something that reminds you of home, and suddenly you're crying in a grocery store. It's normal, so let yourself feel it. Then keep moving forward.
You just got out of your comfort zone, so your feelings and stress are totally normal. Just remember that you're not alone. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Canadian society is very welcoming and helpful, so people around will support you. Just don't be shy to start a conversation. Work-life balance in Canada is actually real. It's not like we say we value work-life balance while we expect you to answer emails at 11 p.m. It's real balance. People actually use their vacation days. There is less this go, go, go mentality and pace of life is slower. In this aspect, Canada sits between US and Europe again. We don't have siestas, but we are not hardcore workaholics either.
You also get less anxiety about the basics. Labor laws in Canada are actually designed to protect the worker, not the employer. You're not one medical bill away from bankruptcy. If you or your kid gets sick, you're covered. If your child wants to go to university, tuition won't cost you your retirement fund. For residents, it's actually around $7,000 to $10,000 a year, depending on the province and the program. And there are also government-backed student loans and grants to help you fill the gaps.
Then there's the feeling of actual safety. Gun violence is rare. Schools don't have active shooter drills, and kids are not exposed to this stress and fear. Parents don't send their kids off each morning with this quiet dread in the back of their minds. You walk home at night and you just breathe easier.
And maybe the most underrated thing some people forget about is belonging. Canadian society is welcoming and tight. Canada is built on immigration. 1 in 4 people in large cities was born abroad. It means that everyone's used to hearing accents, asking where you're from, and meaning it in a very good way. You don't stay the foreigner forever. That mix of cultures creates a sense of acceptance that's hard to describe until you actually feel it. And it's also something really hard to find in the world these days.
Of course, the government isn't perfect. No country is perfect. But here, government is stable, predictable, quiet even. And that boring kind of stability gives people space to plan their lives instead of constantly reacting to crisis.
So, let's sum a few things up. If you're serious about this, here's what to do.
Start immigration process now, not next month or not after the new election. Now, remember, there's 6 to 12 months minimum processing. Then, get credentials recognized before you move. Check if your occupation is regulated and if you require a license in Canada. If you are in a regulated profession, start this process ASAP. Save way more than you think. Minimum 6 months expenses, ideally even 12 months if you don't have a job lined up for you. Moving is expensive, settling is expensive, cost of living is very high. Visit Canada first and try living here like a local. Don't just stay in a hotel downtown. Maybe rent an Airbnb in the suburbs. Go grocery shopping, drive around, go to a mall. Try to live like you would actually live in a new place to get the feel of it. Do some research on your specific industry and city. Some jobs are concentrated geographically. Don't move somewhere blindly. Make research first, start networking, and then, even after you make the move, be flexible to relocate for work. If you need help getting your work affairs in order, check out theboost.ca. It's a product that we've built to help newcomers prepare for the Canadian job market. You also get direct feedback and support from us along the journey. Start meeting people early. Join communities like Facebook groups, Reddit, or immigration forums. Learn from people who've done this before and ask for advice. Here we usually warn people to take everything with a grain of salt because there are as many opinions as people out there and every situation is unique, so be critical when hearing different opinions. Get finances in order. Do your banking research and understand the tax implications. If you have a property you're leaving behind or investments, figure out what you're going to do with them too. And this one is the lightest. Plan for healthcare gap. First 3 months bridge insurance is essential. And finally, set a winter gear budget aside. This is not optional. Budget at least $1,000 per person for proper winter gear. Trust me, it sounds like a lot, but it will last you a lifetime if you invest right. Watch our videos on how to do that here and in the links below.
Moving countries is hard for all of us who've done it. It's probably one of the hardest things that we will ever do in life. But if you come prepared, realistic, and ready to build your own version of success, Canada can give you an incredible life. If you enjoyed this video, tap like and subscribe buttons to stay tuned for more content like this.
On this channel, we share stories, advice, and real talk about life, work, and success in Canada.
Thank you for watching, and welcome to Canada. We'll be glad to have you.